I resigned myself to staying still, nursing the fresh cut in my arm. Each flash gave light to show the shadows, but darkness always took the world again. Lightning struck the trees with vengeance, but none of them deigned to burn. How long I waited, I do not know. There are nights when I do not require sleep. This was one of them, and I regretted it. I was tired once again of my tumultuous inner world, which was ever more wild than the storm above my head. I think I tried to think of nothing, to wash back into the darkness as the rain which continued to pour. I fingered some laurel moss and ate it absently, but I was not hungry. I was afraid, actually. It was a dull, burrowing kind of fear, a fear of the emptiness. I wanted to fade away, to disappear along with all my sorrows, and yet I was afraid that my wish might yet come true. And the rain continued falling. The lightning began its death throes until finally it ceased entirely. The wind began to settle. The rush of rain was slowing. I eased the grip on my cloak. Slowly I opened my eyes and gazed onto the dark world. There was nothing there for a time, but soon I started to see the forms of shadows again. The rain was still falling, but no longer in great force. The downpour was finally letting up. I watched the streams of water as they trickled down the sides of the trees, each path chosen by the surrounding world, and all of them leading to the murky depths below. A listless rain, I thought, and I pained at the thought. My people, my Geomandre, would never have insulted the heaven waters. But that was long ago, even before Morintoff. That was the time of my childhood. Recalling those days was easy and hard. A flood of images would leap to my mind at any instant, and I could swim in that mystic water for ages. But with every passing wave I would be reminded of my loss and shame. Every little passing away beyond my reach. Sometimes I found myself wishing to lose the memories as well. At least then I might stop yearning for their reality. As for reality, well, what was there to say? I had disobeyed the Federation. I had borne them anger and resentment and, yes, violence. Perhaps I deserved to wander without companionship. Nay, more likely I deserved death. That was the sentence they meant to give me. And that sentence might come any day now. Curses are strange things sometimes. For the moment, I was cold and wet and lost, huddling in Nengoom, of all places. And tomorrow I would most likely rise and walk again. To what place I would never know. What did I want in all of this? What was I seeking? Home, perhaps? I had wandered all this time. I would wander for many years hence, without ever feeling at peace. Morintoff had banished me, and the wild was unforgiving, and the civilized world, naturally, took the same view of me as the Federation. And what of my old home? The place where I had spent my childhood? Ah, that place I feared most of all. I could imagine arriving there, after months of journeying, only to find them aghast at my coming. I was a derelict now. I was a criminal and a fool, and I had suffered enough already without being rejected once again. No, I could not go there. I could not go anywhere. not without wanderlust pulling me away. My flesh is my only dwelling place, and even there I am often uncomfortable. I sighed, glanced at the ground, and noticed something curious. I realized that I was sitting on a patch of roots, and that they didn't come from the tree that I was leaning against. The roots were unique in a way that I didn't understand at first. There was a twisting to their patterns, a network of splitting and rejoining and going off in new directions. And as I traced them back with what little light I had, I found that some of them coalesced into a thin trunk leading upward, which itself was connected to another branch of something which led back into the darkness. And some of the roots were leading there too. And it was then that I realized what stood before me. And I looked into that place and I whispered, "Baya Tree." I followed the trail of roots and found the central trunk. Yes, it was just as I had been told. The bark was a plaster of browns and grays, as if the tree could never really decide what its true color was. It expanded in all directions. Roots and branches stretched outward and made new trunks, which themselves continued the expansion. It was a long, slow process. This tree was very old. And looking at it, the first of its species that I had ever seen, I thought back to the day when I had heard its treasured legend. It was my mother who told me. Long, long ago, when the world was new, and the spirits were discussing who among them was the greatest. "'Tis I," said the fire. "I am wild and all-consuming, none other stands before me. 'Tis I," said the river, "I bring life to many things. 'Tis I," said the thundercloud, "I reign from on high, where none can oppose me. 'Tis I," said the wind, "for none can contain me. 'Tis I," said the mountain, "I am great and mighty, and none shall wear me away." And every tree of the forest joined the argument, each declaring some spirit to be the greatest. But there was one tree which did not speak. The Baya Tree remained silent. The others all saw this and said among themselves, "Who is this Baya Tree that refuses to speak?" And they said, "Baya Tree, whom do you think is the greatest of the spirits?" And the Baya replied, "My friends, what does it matter? I must grow and I must flourish, and I have no time for arguments." "Ha!" said the fire, "you refuse to see my power. Well, you shall see it yet." And the fire fell upon the Baya, and it withered in pain. When the fire was finished, the Baya was black and shriveled, and the fire said, "See now, I am far greater than any mere tree." But slowly the Baya roused itself, and it stretched out its roots and its branches, for it was still alive. "Ha!" said the river, "fire cannot kill this tree, for it drinks of my water. But let us see what happens if I abandon it." The river changed its course, and again the Baya shriveled. Soon it was gray and weak and parched, and the river said, "See now, it has died for want of my graciousness." But with the rainfall, the Baya roused itself and grew once again.